Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And it's just for learning. Okay. Today we're going to start the new Mishnah on Daf Mem Dalet 44. 44a, the Mishnah. So Shleisha Minim Masurim Benazir. There's three types of things that are prohibited for a Nazir. Number one is Hatuma. Nazir is not allowed to become Tameh, but the Glachas, not allowed to shave his head. But Yitzim and Agefen and anything that the vine produces. Those are the three things, and that's what we're going to discuss till the end of the page. The differences between these three categories of halachas: impurity, shaving, and wine and grape products. Okay, so it goes like this. There's a stringency in the Nazir becoming impure or shaving his head, which is more strict than the grape products. What's the stringency? Take a look at this. That if the Nazir becomes tamei, or if he shaves his head, he has to recount. And if he drinks wine, yes, it's a prohibition, but it doesn't have to recount the 30 days of his Nazirus. So he can go through his whole Nazirus drinking wine, and he gets lashes a bunch of times, but that doesn't mean that he didn't finish his Nazirus, he had to restart, it didn't count. It counted. Now there's a stringency of the grape products over a Nazir becoming tamei or shaving his head. What is the stringency of the grape products that the other two halachas don't have? There's never an exception for grape products. Even if he says, but 1 second, it's a Fabrengen, it's Purim, it's Pesach, it's Kiddush, Havdalah. We say, no, you're not allowed to. However, and we have an exception. It becomes tamei for a meis mitzvah. A Nazir does become tamei. And a Nazir also has to shave his head if he became a Mitzayra, if he got leprosy, if he got tzaras. So we have examples of exceptions to the rule. However, where are you headed? You're coming back to Miami? Very nice. You see, you're going to pass Reb Moshe on the plane. Okay. So, they have an exception. If he has to shave for mitzvah, for example, he's a mitzvah, or for a meis mitzvah, when he has to become tamei because he has to bury someone that has no other people to assist in the burial. Tuma, the impurity, has a severity over the shaving of the head. What is that? The tuma, the impurity, not only does he have to recount, but he has to bring a sacrifice as well if he becomes tamei. It's the whole process of how he restarts his Nazirus. He has to shave his head. First they have to sprinkle on him, and then he shaves his head, and then he brings sacrifices. However, by Taglachas, which is true, that he does have to restart, but he only has to recount 30 days if he shaved his head in the middle. He doesn't have to restart. He became a Nazir for 60 days. He doesn't have to redo all 60 days if he shaved his head too early. He only has to redo 30 of them. There was the opinion, I think of Rabbi Eliezer, someone said that if the person shaved his head on the last day, then he only needed 7 more days. If it was before the sacrifice or something, he did it too early, so that after the sacrifice, he did it too early. And that one more point of Tumah, that not only does it, you have to recount everything. So if he goes tamei If he's supposed to be a Nazir for 60 days, he becomes tummy, he has to recount 60 days. He's supposed to be a Nazir for 60 days and he shaves his head, he only has to recount 30 days. And one more point is vein chayav and al carbon, he doesn't have to bring the sacrifice if he just took a haircut, but he does have to bring a sacrifice if he was tummy. So what we did here was we have three halachas, and we contrasted two against one. All in all of this we did this one. These two are more strict than this. These two are more strict than this. We keep changing them around. And then we say that tumah is more strict than shaving. What the Gemara is going to do is the Gemara is going to challenge each of the things that we said. Maybe we should make a kal v'chomer, which is a logical. We should draw a logical conclusion that the laws should be different, and then we're going to quote a verse. We're going to do this probably about 10 times. Okay, so it starts like this. Where do you get this? That the tumah, when someone becomes tamei, that a nazir, that there is an exception for him to become tamei when by a meis mitzvah. He says, 1 second, let's compare this to wine. By wine, my yayin sheina seiser, a nazir is not allowed to drink wine, and if he does, it's not so strict. He doesn't have to recount all of his naziros. Okay, it's a prohibition. He's still a nazir, but nevertheless, you never have an exception. He's never allowed to drink wine, even if he took a neder that he's going to drink wine and then he became a nazir. We don't say that if it's a kiddush. There's never an exception. So tumah, when it comes to tumah, which is even more strict than wine, just say seres, because if he becomes tamei, becomes impure, he has to recount the whole naziris. In a din shalei tata mechala, for sure there should be no exceptions. So if wine, which is lenient, because you don't have to recount, but nevertheless, it has the basic stringency that you don't have any exceptions. Morning. So when it comes to tumah, which is much more strict, you have to recount. For sure, you shouldn't have exceptions. You can make exceptions for something that's stricter. So Talmud Laimar, the pasuk tells us that he should not become tummy to his relative, his father, his mother. We imply from that it's only to his father and his mother that he doesn't become tummy, but he does become tummy to a mitzvah, to a corpse that doesn't have anyone else to assist in the burial. Okay.
I was thinking the other way around. Since it's ignorant, that's why there's no.
Yeah.
And in the case of the mitzvah, like he didn't plan it, it's like kind of like a situation that Hashem put in.
Yeah.
When the wine, he has more control.
Right. There's going to be a lot of questions when you go through these Kalvahimers, and you can find reasons to say, 1 second, but the wine has this, but the wine has that. I think what the main point is that the psukim that teach us these halachas are necessary because I could have possibly derived anything. It's not like I couldn't have made a kal v'chomer differently. Kal v'chomer you could play with, but nevertheless, we had to have the psukim in place that set the guidelines for how this is going to work. Now we go to the next case.
The Mace Mitzvah, wouldn't we infer that from the fact that it's not listed in the Pasuk in the Midbar, because it shouldn't become Tomei from this
Right.
and that?
Right.
There's a list and it's not on the list.
Right. And that's really what the Gemara is doing when it says to his father and his mother, he shouldn't become tamei. Mace Mitzvah is not on the list. So
So if Nazir comes in contact with a corpse, he would have to start over. Like if
Yeah.
there's a mitzvah.
yeah, he still has to start over. We're not saying specifically that it's the Mace Mitzvah that starts him over. He always has to start over whenever he's tamei. What we're saying is that a meis mitzvah is an exception where he's actually supposed to become tummy. Usually a Nazir is not allowed to become tummy. But here, when he comes across a corpse on the road and no one burying it, so he's supposed to become tummy.
There's no incentive at all.
There's no incentive, it's just mitzvah. It's going to have to start over, yeah.
Can't say I'm not gonna do it.
You could say
Somebody
that, but
else.
that would be neglecting the mitzvah of burying the dead.
He might tell himself, listen, I don't want to count all over again.
Right.
Do this. So the next guy will do it, hopefully.
Right. Right.
What if there's
Right. Right. I could see that happen. I could see that happening. It doesn't mean it's the right thing, though.
That's what I was doing yesterday, because we were talking about Kohanim.
Right. Okay. Next question. The yayin yutamechlalik kavachem mitama. Now we go the other way. So why don't we have exceptions for drinking wine for the nazir? There's got to be some exceptions. We see that there's exceptions by tuma for impurity. A nazir could once in a while become tummy, meis mitzvah. So for drinking wine, there should be exceptions. When it comes to impurity, which is so strict, if someone becomes impure, he has to recount. Put your mechlala, but nevertheless there are exceptions. So yayin sheina says so yayin, it's much more lenient. So ain't it didn't you to mechlala? If it's lenient, then we should follow in that leniency and say that there's exceptions as well.
Is it more lenient in the Mishnah?
Yeah, we're getting this from the Mishnah that the wine doesn't make him recount if he drinks wine, just a prohibition. So once it's lenient, then we should say that there's also other exceptions. Well, Amakra, the pasuk says, "Miyayin v'shech yazel lesi yayin v'kayin rishus." Maybe we learned this at the beginning. That and Daf Gimel. We learned from the pasuk that even if there's a mitzvah to drink wine, for whatever reason, we say that it's still prohibited. We had a very interesting shot over there. We thought that maybe the mitzvah to drink wine would have been kiddush. We saw in the commentary. Lead us to believe that kiddush is a biblical law.
The Gemara doesn't go into it. It's
Well, it doesn't tell us which wine of mitzvah. Wine of mitzvah could be he took a vow that he's going to drink wine. That could also be a mitzvah, kiddush. But one of the commentary over there in the Rashi position says that it's referring to kiddush. Now, we know kiddush is a biblical law, but not kiddush on wine. You could say we spoke about this at the beginning of the Masechta. Yeah.
What, like
I'm drinking wine on Friday night.
the rice?
Yeah. Don't have to.
So what we have now is we have a pasuk.
So that's the source of the machlekes, whether it's the rice.
With the kiddush on wine is almost like not even a machlekes. This is just like a anomaly, like where do you get this opinion show up from, but yeah. Usually everyone says kiddush is basa takana. I think even the Gemara says clearly that originally they said no, that was by Havdalah. They said they instituted it in the prayer, and then they instituted it on the cup, and then they took it back off, and they said it's just in the prayer, and then depending on how much money they had, if they can afford the wine. Yeah, that was a Gemara somewhere.
I didn't know that the kiddush was
No, the concept of saying Mekadesh HaShabbos is a deraisa because it says Zocher Shem Shabbos the contrary. Remember the Sabbath to sanctify it. You're supposed to sanctify the Sabbath. You're supposed to say the blessing. Now, are you supposed to use a cup of wine to say it? That was instituted by the sages. You could do that in the prayers, right? But we did have a comment on the second page of Nazir that said, quoting this Gemara about a mitzvah, that it is certain times there's a mitzvah to drink wine. Should the Nazir be allowed? We said no. And his example was like kiddush, which makes it, because since the pasuk is telling me that you can't drink wine anyway, it would have to be talking about I could have thought that there was a biblical mitzvah to drink wine. If it was a rabbinical mitzvah, then the pasuk doesn't have to tell me. There was no institution there.
And then that's the same case also for Pesach.
4 cups of wine is also rabbinic on Pesach. Yeah. On Pesach, the only thing that's biblical is the matzah and the saying of the story. Okay.
Bitter herbs.
No, that's rabbinic. Until you have the carbon Pesach. Like what? Are you talking about on by Pesach or by Kiddush? You can always use grape juice, but you're asking if you can do other drinks other than grape products. Yeah, how's he going to do it? So Kiddush could be said over bread. I'm not sure how he's going to do the 4 cups on Pesach. Was he allowed to use Chamar Medina for the 4 cups? Do you remember? I have to check that out. Yeah. I had this famous story where this person asked the Rav if he's allowed to use milk for the 4 cups. So the Rav gave him like a big donation, like a lot of money. I said, why so much? I'm just going to get grape juice. I said, obviously, if you asked for milk, obviously you don't have meat by the table, so you probably need some food also. Okay. Now the Gemara says, "V'yayin yister esakol kalvachem mitum." We should go the other way. We should say that wine should have to recount. We learned from Tumah. How does it work? Ma Tumah shotra michlala. When it comes from Tumah, Tumah is very lenient. Why? Because we have exceptions all the time. Meis mitzvah here, meis mitzvah there. It's a lenient thing, but nevertheless, you have to recount if it becomes yister esakol. The yayin shleiyot michlala, wine, which is so strict, you never have an exception. There's a rule that's never an exception. Like Kolshkin Shista, for sure you should have to recount. If Tumah, which is lenient, you have exceptions, right, and you have to recount if it becomes Tumah. So by wine, which is very strict, for sure you should have to recount. Okay.
Does it say that if you become tummy, you have to recount?
Yeah.
That's not strict.
It's not the case.
You do it, but you got to pay a lot. The other one, you're not supposed to do it, but there's no penalty. Does that make sense?
But there's penalty.
So you get lashes.
We're asking that there should be the penalty. Because it's so strict, you should have to recount. So the pasuk says, therefore we need a pasuk. The pasuk says, "Vayam Rishayim Yiplu Kitami Nizri, Tumas Liseres Veini Yain Seiser." The first dates fall off because his Nazirite ship became Tameh. That's only for Tumah where the first days fall off, not if he drank wine. Yeah. So now we ask, we said that when it comes to a haircut, you don't have to reshave. You don't have to, if he shaves at the wrong time, when he's a Nazir, he shaves his head, he only has to recount 30 days. He doesn't have to redo everything, just 30 days. But when Tumah, he has to redo everything. So for example, if he was Tameh, if he was a Nazir for 60 days, if it becomes Tameh, he has to redo the 60 days. But if he took a haircut, he only has to redo 30 days. Say like this. By Tumah, if someone dies, passed away in the house where the Nazir is, so you don't say that the guy that passed away did a prohibition, because he made the Nazir Tameh. That's not the main point, because he passed away. But let's say there was someone that was touching the Nazir and touching the corpse at the same time. Remember, we said that would create a circuit and pass the Tumah over. Does the person that created that circuit to make the Nazir Tameh, does he get lashes for doing that? The Nazir gets lashes. He wasn't allowed to become Tameh. Does the person that made him Tameh? We said no. We're saying that he doesn't. But nevertheless, so if Tumah is lenient, because the person that makes him Tameh doesn't get lashes, only the Nazir gets lashes. But nevertheless, he says a call. But nevertheless, you have to recount the entire 60 days or whatever the time of the Nazir is. So if something is that lenient, but nevertheless it has a stringency, when it comes to taking a haircut, not only does the Nazir get into trouble, but the barber also gets into trouble. Tough job to be a from barber. Why? First of all, people come in, they want the payas cut. You have to tell them that I'm sorry, can't cut your payas if the person's Jewish. And also, could be the guy's a Nazir. Highly unlikely. But if the guy's a Nazir that's sitting in the barber chair, you have to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And if he does do it, the barber gets lashes too. So we see that giving the haircut is even stricter than Tumah, because the person that does it, the one that's causing it, is also getting into trouble. He's getting lashed. So if that's the case, then for sure he should have to recount everything, because so much more strict. The person that gives the haircut is also gets into trouble. For sure you should have to recount everything. Amakra, the pasuk says, "Vayam Rishonim Yiplu Kitam Minisri." Tumah Seiser Sesakol Vein Teglachas Seiser Sesakol. The first days fall off because he's tummy. It's only by Tumah that we say this, not by the haircut. The Tumah Nasis from Metamek and Metamek Avachem Teglachas.
Have a great day.
Okay. Tumah, we're asking that the person that made the Nazir Tameh should also get lashes. When it comes to the haircut, we have a kavachayim now. Okay, by a haircut, we say it's very lenient. It only makes the person recount 30 days. If a Nazir takes a haircut in the middle of his Nazir, he only has to redo 30 days. But nevertheless, such a lenient halacha, but nevertheless, the person that gave him the haircut is in big trouble. So Tumah, Tumah, when it comes to impurity, which that is much stricter because you have to recount everything, not just 30 days.
Why does the Tumah transfer to the barber and not someone who's just touching the corpse?
No, 1 second. We're doing a comparison. There's two cases here. There's two rules by the Nazir. The Nazir is not allowed to become tamei, and he's also not allowed to get a haircut. What happens if he does both of those? Well, he gets into trouble. What about the person that caused him to become tamei, or the person that cut his hair, the barber? So what happens is the barber is also in trouble, but the person that caused him to become tamei is not. So we're asking now. We're saying that Tumah the person that caused him to become should be also in trouble. Why? Because we make a kal v'chaimer from the haircut. When it comes to the haircut, look, the haircut's a very lenient thing. If he takes a haircut in the middle of the Naziris, he only has to redo 30 days. He doesn't have to redo the whole Naziris. Let's say it was a Nazir for 60 days. And he took a haircut in the middle. He wasn't supposed to. He has to recount only 30. When it comes to becoming tamei, he has to recount everything, all 60. So to being tamei is much stricter. Now, if by the haircut, the person that gave him the haircut, which is very lenient, it's only 30 days, but nevertheless, the person that gave him the haircut is in trouble, he gets lashes. So the one that made him tamei, which Tumah is much stricter, you have to recount everything, for sure should get lashes. In addition, that the one that makes him tamei should be the same like the one that becomes tamei. Amakra, yeah. Amakra, the pasuk says, "V'tamei reish nizrei," the head of the Naziriteship was impure. L'metamei reish nizrei. It's only the person himself. Okay. I'm not sure exactly how it knows that from that verse. One commentary here says that it could have said "V'tamei lo reish nizrei," and that would have added in that extra word, would have told me that it applies to the person that makes him tamei as well. But because it didn't add in that word. Okay. Next question. We should go the other way. We should say that if by Tumah, the person that makes him tamei is not in trouble, It's only the one that is tummy, the Nazir. He's in trouble. The one that made him tummy doesn't get lashed. We should say the same thing, that only the Nazir should be in trouble for the haircut, and not the one that gave him the haircut. We'll do a comparison there and make a kal b'chaimer.
Didn't we say that he doesn't make him tummy?
If he becomes tummy, he's tummy.
No, he had intermediary, became tummy from a corpse.
Well, while that we said about the chibura, and if it was attached, we said it becomes tummy biblical.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to impurity, Sarah says a call. That's very strict. Impurity, you have to recount everything, right? We don't say that the person that made him tummy gets lashes. Only the Nazir himself gets lashes. When it comes to the taglachas, which is much more lenient, it only makes him recount 30 days. Like don't you want to say that for sure? He shouldn't get lashes, the guy that gives him the haircut. It's much more lenient than tummy. By tummy, you don't, for sure. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Tar la yavar al reishai. The shaver should not pass over, the razor should not pass over his head. Karibe la yavar hu la yavar la'acher. It's the word la yavar apparently could be translated in two ways. One is la yavar is he should not pass it over his head. It means he shouldn't shave it himself, right? And it also could mean la yavar, that someone else should not cause him. Now, the way I understood this when I read this at first is that in Hebrew you can use one verb to be what you're doing, and it can also be what you're causing someone else to do. You use the same three then hifil, the hifil. Now, the way you get a hifil in a future tense is you put a patach under the prefix. For example, someone could be yakdish, or makdish. He's making something else kaidesh. He's not. He himself becomes kaidesh. That would be, I don't know, ekdash or something. If he becomes kaidesh, it would be yikdash. But yakdish means that he's making something else. So yavar would be that he's making someone else. He's making it pass over someone else, or he's causing someone else to pass it. I'm just talking about the vowel under a prefix. Could change it from just a regular action to a causative action. Now, why is it like this? Why is this? Why do they have two explanations here? The problem is that when there's a shirish that has a guttural letter, you'll very often have a patach, even though it's not a real patach. Real patach, not a real patach. And the prefix follows. The prefix will follow. Will be the same as the next letter. So yava, yeah. So the prefix will get a patach. In the ayin has a patach as well. You know, it's a chata patach. But the prefix of the yud is confusing because it looks like it's a hifil. It's really not. It's not a hifil. It's false. The rule of the patach under the prefix doesn't apply when the first letter is the federal letter.
Pronounce it.
No, you pronounce everything. You read it exactly the same. I'm just saying that when you translate it, this is one thing that will throw you off. You think I got the rule. I have a patach. It's going to throw you off when you have a guttural letter. Okay. That's what I thought is the pshat. And then I see on the side, they changed the text over here, and it's Yavir Terchlius. They adjust something over here. When they say Karibe la Yavar hu la Yavir la Acher. So yeah, they add in the yud instead of Yavir la Yavir le Acher, and someone else should not do it to him. What do you have in yours? Yavar hu la Yavir la Acher. Exactly the way I read it. Okay. Okay. I think my shot is also good.
It's interesting you think about it. So we pick up a chumash with the pudot that have been added. There's always a decision, a meaningful decision about the meaning
Right.
for about adding the nakudot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the nakudas we have from tradition. We
Yeah.
have the nakudas, but
What do you mean from tradition?
how far back to the nakudas we have? We have from the what's it called? The Aleppo Codex. We have the Leningrad Codex. We have like, these ancient.
Is that considered Ruach HaKodesh, nakudot?
So then we have, but when you go further back from Tveria, the document Tveria called Masoretes.
Masoretic text.
Yeah, when you go behind that, because then you have what the Gemara calls us Yeshem LaMikra, Yeshem LaMasiris. You have the way it's read, the way it's written. So I mean, the sages of the Talmud were clear in that it was read like this, it was read like that. So exactly how they knew it, I'm not sure if they actually had those same vowels that we have it today, but they definitely had the pronunciation. The pronunciation was significant. That's clear.
After the yeshiva in Tveria, you're saying that's when they adopted.
Well, yeah, I don't know, but we talk about the yeshiva in Tveria when they turn to Rabbeinu and all of that. Then in the 700s, there were these sages, that the Rambam quotes it, Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali, that he used there to Sefer Torah to check where the psuchas and stimas are. Apparently, they were masters in the text. Anyway, okay. Well, now we ask another question. And the haircut should not have any exceptions, just like wine. Wine doesn't have any exceptions. Wine, which is very lenient. But even something that's lenient, you got to be strict about no exceptions, right? Once you start exceptions. So even wine that's so lenient, you don't have exceptions. But haircuts are very strict. You have to recount the whole thing. Not the whole thing. You have to recount 30 days. So is it not a kal v'chaymer that you should not have any exceptions for the haircut? Rachmana, the Eberster says, Torah says, Reishai v'Rachmana ziknai. Zikanai. This we had like several days ago that we had these two extra words here, Reishai and zikanai, and that taught us that Mitzayre has his. We had it on Mem base.
Well, the barber would also get them off, but the one who made it funny would not.
Right. But now we're talking about can the haircut be done for a Mitzayra that's also a Nazir? Mitzayra, in part of his purification process, is to get a haircut. The problem is he's also a Nazir, so maybe we should not allow it because he's a Nazir. Say no, we do allow it. There's an exception.
The question was whether it's after he did carbon or not.
No, but even in the middle of his
He's
Nazirus.
Nazir Olam.
Yeah, but even if not, even if he's in the middle of his Nazirite-ship, if he becomes pure from the Ras, he would cut his hair. This would be an exception to the rule. Yeah. Now the Gemara says, really, he shouldn't have to recount anything by shaving his head, just like wine. It's a prohibition, but you don't have to recount. When it comes to wine, which is very strict, you never have any exception for wine. No kiddush, nothing. But nevertheless, ain't a seiser. Even though it's so strict, but we say that you don't have to recount. When it comes to haircuts, you have exceptions for the haircut. Ain't a dinshlei tister. Shouldn't we say that you should for sure not have to recount? We're asking. So the Gemara says, well, that's not the point. The problem is that when it comes to shaving his head, he has to shave his head on hair that had grown. And it takes 30 days for the hair to grow. He has to grow his hair for 30. And since it didn't grow for 30 days because he cut it in the middle, It's not about recounting. It's about getting the hair to be that size, to be the 30-day hair growth. Okay.
The wine might be the system of a few hours.
Uh-huh.
Say that again, please.
I was thinking that the hair was necessary in order to conclude the Nazir issue, and the wine will be like out of your system within a couple hours.
Right. What was that comment from Winston Churchill? That I'll be sober in the morning, but you'll always something. I forget his comment. It's a nasty comment.
I'll be sober in the morning, and then
Someone insulted him or something. Anyway, he said, "I'll be sober in the morning, but you'll always be whatever." Anyway,
Just finishing this logically. It's a great comment. Okay.
okay. So the yayin is, but your logic is good. Hillel's logic is that the wine, like how much does it really affect him? Affects him for a few hours, but the haircut, it's 3 weeks, till you see, right? Here it's 30 days. The yayin yister shleishim yayin kavachim mitiglachas. 1 second. Gemara asks, you should have to recount 30 days from the wine. Maybe it's a drug and alcohol test. Maybe, I don't know how long it takes. How long can they tell if you had alcohol? Can they tell from the blood if you had alcohol within 30 days? How many days?
I think, well, the normal test, like the police administrator wouldn't tell.
It was just within a few hours. Or,
Yeah, because alcohol in the registry registers.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if there's a minimum shear.
Uh-huh.
I've heard that you don't know, like the breathalyzer will diffuse, and they do a test like later on, like 2 hours later, like they take you in and then they do a test, like your body be negative.
Uh-huh.
They can sober up and the whole thing.
Yeah, but that's why it's illegal to refuse to take a test. Or they can take a license just for refusing to take the test. That happens.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it is in Florida, but in most states, if you refuse to take the test, they take your license.
Okay.
That wouldn't be a bad law.
It's an implied consent.
So, yayin yister shleishim yayin kavachim mitiglachas. You should have to recount mataglachas. When it comes to the haircut, which has exceptions, but nevertheless, it has to recount. So yayin shlihuta mechlala, yayin which never has exceptions. In addition, for sure you should have to recount. Wine is much stricter, right? There's never any exceptions. For sure you should have to count 30 days. It says midihu taima. Why are you making this comparison? It's only elamishum gidol sar. It was only because he needed his hair to grow back. But when he drinks wine, his hair is still there. Doesn't need to wait for his hair to grow back. So that was basically your logic. Okay. Learn the Mishnah. Teglachas tuma Kate how is the haircut done of someone that became tummy in the middle of his Nazirus? Well, they would sprinkle on him on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. This is a 3rd day and 7th day of his becoming pure. This is a purification process. So far, everything is normal, even if it wasn't a Nazir. That 3rd and 7th day is the day that they sprinkle on him from the water, from the ash of the paraduma, the red heifer. You would have the purification of someone that was in contact. That's only that's only by the haircut is only going to be by tzaras or by Nazir. That's tummy. So here umegaleach b'shvi, because he's a Nazir, he has to shave his head and then restart the more than 30 days in this case, more the full thing. Megaleach b'shvi, shave his head on the 7th day. Maybe karbonaisa b'shmini. And then he brings the sacrifices on the 8th day. He has to wait for nightfall after the 7 days. And then on the 8th day he's already eligible to bring sacrifices. Then gilach b'shmini, let's say he didn't shave his head on the 7th day. The barber shop was closed. He waited till the 8th day. So maybe Karbanisa by Bayam, that's fine, because he can still bring the sacrifices that day. Nothing changes. The Rebbe Kiva, that's what Rebbe Kiva says. Amalei Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon says, Ma bin Zela Mitzayra. Why are you making a distinction here? By a Mitzayra, if the person, the same thing was supposed to happen. He's supposed to sprinkle on him on the 3rd and 7th day. He's supposed to shave his head on the 7th day as well. And then on the 8th day, he brings his sacrifices. But by the Mitzayra, if he didn't shave his head on the 7th day, he did it on the 8th day, then he doesn't bring the sacrifices until the 9th day. And according to you, Rabbi Akiva, you can shave his head and bring the sacrifice on the same day. Why are you making a distinction between a Nazir and a Mitzayra? Amalei, so Rabbi Akiva responds to Rabbi Tarfon, Zet Arasei Tluya B'Yamav, the Nazir doesn't, the haircut is not the significant part over here. He just had to wait 7 days to become pure. Once he waits the 7 days, everything is good. Mitzayra Tarasei Tluya B'Teglachte, but by the Mitzayra, he has to wait for the haircut in order to bring the sacrifices. And but he has to wait for a day later because he has to wait, can't bring the sacrifices until the sun sets after he had the haircut, after he went to the mikveh. So, yeah, the Gemara is going to explain this, but what exactly happened here is Rabbi Tarfon was suggesting to Rabbi Akiva that you should be consistent with if someone doesn't cut his hair on the 7th day, cuts it on the 8th day. And Rabbi Akiva said, no, it's different. It's different. The Nida doesn't bring a sacrifice. Well, it has to do with the laws of purity, which the Nida is one of them. But here it's specific, like how the sacrifice could be brought in relationship to that. Could be. Could be. Did Rabbi Tarfon accept Rabbi Akiva's explanation? Tashma the Tani Hill. So we have a support for this from the Amira Hillel. Hillel, the Amira, taught a brisa. Yeah.
Huh?
Tani Hillel. Hillel taught in a brisa. Now, it wasn't Hillel's, unless maybe you want to say the Tani Hillel. I don't know. Could be an Amira. Different sage Hillel. Gilach. Huh? Gilach Bishmin. Yeah, but yeah, usually a brisa would be, if it would go like this, the Tanya, Hillel, then I would say that it was Hillel that was talking. But this is Tani Hillel. This is many times this is an expression that's used that in the yeshivas in Bavel, someone recited a brisa that he had from his teachers or whatever. So it sounds like it's not Hillel talking in the brisa. It's Hillel quoting a brisa, which is usually an Amira that does it. The Tani Hillel, Gilach Bishmini maybe Kabanaisa B'chi. Hillel taught that if he takes a haircut on the 8th day, he brings the sacrifices on the 9th day. Who holds that? Reb Tarfon. If you say that Reb Tarfon accepted Rabbi Akiva's answer, then he should have to bring the sacrifice on the 8th day, not on the 9th day. He should be allowed to bring it on the 8th day. Okay, so we seem to have a support that he did not accept. Reb Tarfon did not accept it because we have a brisa that seems to follow that. Amar Rava leikasha. Rava says no, it's not a problem because had tavel b'shvi, had tavel b'shvi. Depends. If he went to the mikveh on the 7th day, then Reb Tarfon would agree that you can bring the sacrifice on the 8th day. Here, had tavel b'shvi, he didn't go to the mikveh on the 7th day, went to the mikveh on the 8th day. Went to the mikveh on the 8th day, then you have to wait for nightfall. And then if you wait for nightfall, then automatically it's the 9th day. So it could be that Reb Tarfon would have agreed, but this case that you quoted is not a real support because he went to the mikvah on the wrong day. I guess we'll leave it over here. I am Rabbi.
An observation about what you say.
Yeah.
Especially